you this morning?
I think okay.
Just
It's going
you got me
along.
better, you couldn't stand it.
True.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
There he is.
I had to find my way in.
True story.
Oh, we parked on the wrong side of the road.
Right?
There's got to be a door here somewhere.
It's on our agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ready for me?
Well, we're gonna say the pledge of allegiance here
Okay.
just a second. He's just about in the room, right? Ready
Yes,
to wait,
I'm
Lex? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes and agenda.
I'll second.
Motion Spencer, and a second from Derby to approve the minutes and agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. 9 a.m., John Torbert, IDDA, to discuss annual update.
Is this okay?
That's fine.
Good morning, everyone.
Has it already been a year since you've been here?
Well, I don't know if it's been a year, but I try to do these
Yeah,
once
yeah.
a year.
Hasn't seemed that long.
Okay, talk about several things. First of all, visit briefly about where we are on the waters of the United States. To give a little background on the issue, 5 or 6 years ago, we had a situation where what regulation said was that EPA could regulate navigable waters, and navigable was pretty well defined. Obama administration came along and changed the rule, and they took the word navigable out. So potentially at that point, EPA had the ability to regulate anything they wanted, including drainage districts. Lawsuit was filed against that. Federal district court judge put a hold on the law, but since it was district court, the hold did not apply nationally. So you had some states where the rule was enforced, and some states where the rule wasn't enforced. And Iowa happened to be one of the states where it was not enforced. So that situation pretty much stayed that way until the Trump administration came in. And the Trump administration announces very early that we're going to change the rule again, and we're going to put the word navigable back in. That has been done. That has happened. That finally took effect this year, right, late last year. So that was well and good. But you know there's got to be a but. The second thing that the Trump administration said is that at the same time we're going to take the word navigable out, we have to put a new rule into effect because there's some things that have happened in the Supreme Court that we think the rule needs to speak to. So they came out with a new proposal about a year ago, January of last year, which was their new rule. And we had concerns as an association about that proposal because we did not think it provided clarity in terms of how drainage districts should be treated. It was unclear under the rule whether drainage projects would have to get a Clean Water Act rule for that project to continue. So we were part of the public comment process. They held public comments until April. The public comments closed in April. My understanding is they received in excess of 700,000 public comments nationally. So what EPA is supposed to do is look at those comments and then take those comments into consideration in drafting a final rule. So the final rule has been drafted and it's out. Came out about a month ago. And while the stated purpose of the rule is to provide clarity, I think there's still some gray area with respect to drainage and how it's going to impact drainage rates. I don't think there's a question that you're protected if you do a repair or maintenance of a district. I don't think you have to get any Clean Water Act permit to do a repair. But when you get into improvements, depending on where the improvement is and how it impacts surrounding waters, that improvement may require a Clean Water Act permit. And that is something that your engineers that you're hiring to do these projects are going to have to figure out. And it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Hey! Congratulations!
You didn't have enough to do it.
No, not even close.
So, you know, the engineer is going to have to make a determination on whether potentially the project would be a project that requires a Clean Water Act permit. Probably going to have to contact the Corps of Engineers. Corps of Engineers is going to have to make a decision by their guidelines whether it's going to need a Clean Water Act permit or not. And I think a lot of this will depend on what guidance the regional offices provide. Because we've seen in the past, particularly in the old rule, the guidance provided by the EPA regional office to their various regions were very, very different across the United States. So I think a lot of it's going to be the EPA regional office for Iowa was in Kansas City. Jim Gulliford, I don't know if any of you remember Jim, but Jim used to work for IDOLS and then actually was a speaker at our annual conference about 5 or 6 years ago. And he is EPA administrator for our region now. He understands drainage, I know that for a fact. So we're hopeful that with a friendly ear in EPA, that they'll look at these projects and not go overboard in terms of how they're providing these projects. But my take right now, and I've still got work to do in terms of figuring this out, but my take right now is that potentially you might have to get a Clean Water Act permit to do an improvement. Okay?
Who's the final order?
The Corps of Engineers.
The regional or the big dogs?
Well, the local office.
Local office.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding that anything, we've got one meandering waterway kind of that a district dumps into. It was my understanding that the Corps of Engineers has to make determination on that. It's just a full-on permitting process, or is it a different process than what we were doing before?
Well, I'm not sure what the process is going to be because we haven't had permits before, so I'm not sure exactly how they're going to treat this. We don't know yet.
It was more of a determination they had to make before.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a cost associated with these permits?
Well, there's probably a cost to get the permit. I don't think that's going to be huge, but the cost is going to be time.
Engineering
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
So that would possibly lower it. I don't know if it'd affect that far up on our other part of the improvement.
Should not.
Or on the
We make
DD 18 improvement, it's all three.
So we can't, like you said, we have a couple projects that I think might be that we can't move forward with until we get this straightened out.
Well, your engineers should be aware of what is going on, and we'll have to act accordingly. Second thing I'll talk about briefly is Fish and Wildlife Service, and this, I think this has been an issue since I took over IDDA in 2001. And I think you know what the issue is, and Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't pay drainage assessments. And Of course, what happens if you assess them for drainage repair or improvement, they don't pay, then that cost has to get passed on to the other landowners of the district. I have been working with Senator Grassley's staff to see if we can find a resolution of that or come up with some resolution so that drainage assessments could be taken care of. And I've probably been working with the Grassley staff person for about 6 months now. And the first thing she said, well, the first thing I have to determine is this Fish and Wildlife Service still contend they don't have to pay assessments. So she checked with them and found out that, yes, they do contend they don't have to pay assessments, and there is a court case that is right on point. There was a legal opinion floating around the state for a few years that said, well, it's not really an assessment, it's a service charge, and doesn't fall under traditional definition of assessment. So if you call it a different thing, Fish and Wildlife Service will pay it. No, it doesn't work that way. Fish and Wildlife Service has made it very clear that the only time they will pay any kind of assessments like that is if a project has to do with pollution abatement, and drainage district projects do not have to do with pollution abatement. So the next thing she says, well, I have to make a determination on how widespread this is. This is just a drainage issue in Iowa, or is this something that affects, other kinds of projects and other kinds of groups across the nation? And her answer to what she discovered as a result of that was it is a much bigger deal than just drainage in Iowa. There are other kinds of assessments that Fish and Wildlife Service gets billed for that they don't pay, relying on the same court case. So it's not just drainage districts in Iowa, it's groups all over the United States. So the next question is, what can be done about it? And that's where we are right now. She said she wanted to talk with legislative staff. I haven't heard back from her yet on those conversations. My hope is that we can get Senator Grassley interested in doing something. Senator Grassley owns farmland. He pays drainage assessments. He understands drainage. He knows full well what happens when other parties that are assessed don't pay those assessments and how it impacts his assessments. So he has a very clear idea of what the issue is. So we're hopeful that we can work our way up the food chain to actually get the issue in front of the senator and see if he has an interest in pursuing it legislatively, because my feeling at this point is it is going to take a legislative fix, and those are never easy. Unfortunately, drainage does not have a federal presence in Washington, D.C., and getting legislation done at the federal level is a daunting task. So it would take something like a powerful Senator Grassley who'd be willing to spend some capital on the issue to get it done. So we'll continue to pursue it and see if we can get anything done. Last but not least, we have the legislature, which has been really interesting this year. We have seen probably more bills filed on drainage this year than we have in probably the last 3 to 4 years combined. Some of those are ours, some of those aren't. So we have been working very hard to try to keep the train on the track, so to speak, and make sure that we don't have legislation through which is going to have a detrimental impact. We do have 2 bills that are ours that are still alive. One is on the publication cost involved in classification or reclassification, so that you don't have to publish all of that information that you've already mailed to the landowners. We heard, back from drainage, this was something that originated with the drainage clerks, and, they were talking about the bills, publication notice bills that they had to pay, that of course get passed on to the landowners. They said, why are we paying this cost when they have the information anyway? So that bill is alive and is funnel-proofed. And we hope to see action on that this session. Second thing is an issue on railroads. What happens when railroad repairs are necessary within drainage infrastructure? And we have a bill that is also alive that would return that cost to the railroad. It was with the railroads for many, many years, and that got changed by an Iowa Supreme Court decision out of Hardin County 5-6 years ago. So essentially, we're trying to get the legislature to put specific wording in place, which we think was always the intent of the law, but it's not stated very well in the law, so that when you have repairs that have to be done, that those fall back to responsibility of the railroad as opposed to the landowners in the district. And like I said, that bill is alive and well. We're going to have more trouble getting that one through because we've got, as you might expect, railroad companies that are dead set against it. And then we had another bill that came out that had some discussion last week, but legislature made the determination that the bill was not ready for prime time. And it made a lot of changes in drainage law. And frankly, the bill was so confusing that it was difficult to really figure out exactly what they were trying to do. And I read through it. I probably spent a half day on it trying to write a summary for my board. And every time I read it, I found something new. And I placed a call to attorney I know at the Farm Bureau, and she said the same thing. She says, John, I've spent hours in this bill, and I can't figure it out. She goes, this is one of the most poorly drafted pieces of legislation I've ever seen. What are they trying to do here? I said, I don't know. First thing the bill did was it got into the remonstrance section, and it changed the terminology so that a remonstrance would become an objection. It changed the property threshold from 70% down to 50%, which is a huge change in drainage law. And also said that you all as trustees could put a project to a vote of the electors in the district, which may not be bad, but again, pretty significant change in drainage law. So one of the big things it did was change remonstrance. And then it got into all this sort of convoluted language on repairs and improvements, and tried to set up a classification schedule so that you could determine whether a repair was a minor repair or a major repair. And if it was a minor repair, you had to do this, and if it was a major repair, you had to do this. And it did the same thing on improvements, and it said, if you have a minor improvement, you have to do this. If you have a major improvement, you have to do this. Well, in my way of thinking, there's no such thing as a minor improvement. If you're doing an improvement, by design, it's pretty major. It changed the threshold on when you needed to have an engineer involved. It also had some language that said that you, instead of using the engineer, could go to the Soil and Water Conservation Service and use them to do work on some of your projects. And at one point in the bill, it said think it was like in excess of $300,000 you could spend without getting an engineer report. I mean, and that's a lot of money to spend without having an outside professional look at what you're trying to do. So that bill was discussed in subcommittee last week, and we raised a number of concerns about it. And I went up last week and talked with one of the members of the subcommittee along with one of our lobbyists and convinced them that the bill needed a lot of work before it started to work its way. I mean, because it just raised more questions than it answered, and it wasn't really clear what they were trying to accomplish with the bill. Usually when you read a piece of legislation, you can figure out what they're trying to accomplish. Really couldn't figure out what they were trying to accomplish with the bill. So where they stand now is that the plan is to have possibly an informal study committee this summer on some of these issues. And if we can come to agreement on some of the things that need to be done, perhaps come back to the legislature next year with a new bill. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but that was where it sort of left last week.
Who's on that committee?
The informal committee, they haven't said yet. They haven't said yet.
I could see they were trying to have a little give and take on
Sure.
that, making it easier for smaller
Yeah,
improvements.
and that's fine. But the remonstrance is a huge deal.
Yeah. That makes it hard. Interesting.
So that's where we are.
Do you know anything about the Iowa River watershed group that's been meeting?
Not much. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that have been meeting. I know that. I don't know about this one specifically.
We were invited to a meeting, and we're not even sure we have any of our watershed that goes that way.
Well, I know Chris sent me that, and I was trying to figure out if you were in that watershed, and I did some internet research, and I really
All our
couldn't
water
figure it
goes
out.
there or there, not there.
Yeah, so. Thing to remember about these they're called watershed authorities, but they're not really authorities. They don't have the ability to pass regulation. They don't have the ability to pass law. All they can do is talk and recommend. But having said that, some of these groups, I recommend to my county supervisors in drainage counties that if they get invited to participate in these groups, if they're able to, they should, just for defense, if nothing else, because some of the things we've heard coming out of some of the recommendations we've heard, they have no idea what drainage is and what drainage rights are. And that needs to be discussed if they're talking about substantial issues in the watershed.
Well, it would have affected us
Sure.
directly, I would have probably
Yep.
gone
Sure.
down and came as a
Yeah.
long ways to go.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to get your name on it, I use your name to say this, they're for what we're for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little cautious on groups that have
Yeah, understand.
alternative agendas.
Yeah.
As far as
On the $300,000 remonstrance limit, has your group ever thought of including Tyler's in that discussion? In what you're drafting?
We certainly will if it comes to that. I mean, if we have to look at remonstrance and come up with a recommendation, we'll involve as many people as we can at our level to see if that's something that needs to happen or not. If you're talking about changing remonstrance numbers, those numbers have been in the law for 50 plus years. And that's a big deal. And somebody,
And farmers.
I don't care if you change it to 30% or 40% or 50% or 80%, somebody's always going to be on the wrong side of the threshold, no matter what you do. All right.
Good to be here. Thank you, Derek. Gold fellows. legislation was to keep us all confused.
Could be. Well, they certainly accomplished that goal. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
appreciate
thank
it.
you very much.
Yep.
Have a safe trip.
Yep, thank you. Find my way back to the car.
Yeah, it's, someday it'll be better.
Understand. Good to see you all.
Have a good day.
We
Yep,
didn't
good
want
to
a
see you.
brick to fall on your head on the other one.
Okay.
On the west.
Yeah.
You wanna talk about that, like drainage?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I just got down to Otter's office, let's discuss drainage matters, I'm sure we can quickly get that one out of the way.
Okay. The only thing I have is that letter that I sent to you guys with the DNR.
Yeah.
I know Mike replied. I didn't know if anybody else had any questions on it. If you wanted anything different.
Fine with me.
I mean, that's fine, so. If you guys are okay with it, then I would have Bill sign it. And then I send this to TJ and then he'll get it to his bosses. Thank you.
Get it real quick. Consider for approval ownership renewal for liquor license for Rice Lake Isaac Walton.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion from Stenger and a second for Derby to approve the liquor license for Rice Lake Isaac Walton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Since you get approved. Yeah, I guess we can consider for approval for county claims. You guys all had a chance to look at it, did you?
I didn't get it back from Julie.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Look, it's right in front of me. Snake would have been there.
What are we talking about?
Claims.
All claims? Yeah. You make the motion. I'll second it
The
then.
motion Stenger, second for Derby to approve the county claims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
In the middle.
Okay, consider for approval updated TIF forms.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated TIF form.
Motion from Derby and a second from Stenger to approve the updated TIF forms. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anything else for open forum?
Yeah.
Okay, 9:30 AM, informational meeting regarding half-inch or 1-inch drainage coefficients for DD 18, Lot 11 tile improvement project.
I can just summarize things for you. What I gave you was a copy of the bid form, tab form with the two low bidders on it. And I included option 1 and the low bidder on that, and that's half-inch coefficient. The low bidder was Holland Contracting. And then on the 1-inch coefficient, B&B Farm Drainage is the low bidder. Both extremely competent contractors. We'd be delighted with either one of those. The way I just would suggest looking at this is decide which option you want to go with, and then award to the low bidder. I did rework these a little bit following the bid. I reduced retainage because contingencies I reduced because once we get to bid letting, we've done the final design. There shouldn't be very much extra work. I've reduced the easement cost because we're not doing the whole district improvement. We're just doing this lateral. So for the half-inch coefficient, I came up with an estimated total cost of $270,000. When I had put this together originally, it was considerably higher, but that included a lot more easement. And then the 1-inch coefficient, I'm estimating total project cost to be $340,000. So the half-inch would be a little over $250 an acre average. The 1-inch would be a little over $316 an acre average. Since I don't have any money that I'll be paying for this, I can make a recommendation very easily. For 28% more cost, you get 100% more drainage. But part, I think, why you delayed this was to get input from the landowners and see what their thoughts are.
They did though. I thought they'd agreed to do the 1-inch at a previous meeting.
We said we'd make.
Or you were,
decision.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
I did have one landowner, Carl Langfold, well, he's a planter, would go for the 1-inch. That's the only one I'd heard from.
He's at the top.
Yeah.
Any concerns?
Do it once now, you won't get back under that railroad in the next 100 years.
That's a good point. We've got that worked out. One other thing too, Scott, your engineer, had brought up a point about sometimes they don't go from right-of-way line to right-of-way line. They do a shorter boring and then just put regular pipe on each end. I did talk to the contractor already about that yesterday, and he talked to his boring guy. And if we do some shortening of that pipe, we're thinking we can save about $9,000. So
Explain that again to me.
we typically do the boring from right-of-way line to right-of-way line, just so there's no work.
Okay.
Yeah, but Scott said, well, you have in the past sometimes shortened that up, so that under the road it's all the casing pipe, but outside the road itself can just be regular concrete pipe. So that's something we'll want to talk to the contractor about, and Scott, come up with a decision there, but at least it's a savings, not an extra cost.
And that only goes to the secondary road
Yeah.
bill.
Good point.
Yeah, it
very
doesn't
good
go to
point.
landowners.
Yeah. Well, couldn't see
In a
it.
different way, but more landowners.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah,
A little
yeah.
more indirect routes.
right.
yeah.
So, yeah, he's thinking probably about $9,000, because they still have to dig the holes. And what's helping us some is they're mobilizing anyway for the railroad, even if we cut this back.
Sure.
So won't be much for mobilization extra.
Do you know who the boring contractor is, or?
No, I didn't get a name.
Okay, well, we can continue to hone in on this.
Yes, yes.
You're using concrete tile.
Yeah, yeah,
All
all
concrete.
concrete, yep. We're hoping this is a 150-year system, and you should never have to go under the railroad again. Another reason why we'd recommend the 1-inch, get that under the railroad. Yeah, None of us would have to.
Have it be good for.
yeah.
But you guys are the ones who get paid for it, so. Any concerns?
I'm just here as a tenant, but I've talked to my landlord, and she's the point that he made for the little additional cost
Yeah,
to go to the 1-inch. It seems foolish once you've dug the hole not to put the bigger pipe in.
and by going at that also, there's some hope that it'll help take pressure off further up, because it'll be getting rid of it easier further down.
Chris, you want those as separate motions? Or by together?
Probably 7.
Okay,
Did you have another question?
I guess I'll make a motion to approve DD 18 lat 11 tile improvement projects going with the 1-inch coefficient.
I'll second that motion.
motion Stender, second Derby, to approve the DD 18 lot 11 tile improvement project with the 1-inch coefficient. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the bid, the contractor for DD 18 lat 11, as B&B Farm Drainage, because they was the lowest bidder on, DD 18 lat 11.
I'll second that.
and a motion Stender and a second from Derby to approve bids and the contractor for DD 18 lat 11 tile improvement project as B&B Farm Drainage, Wallingford, Iowa, for $315,802.50. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I have a notice of award. I brought him for each contractor, so he was prepared, but have a notice of award form I'd like to get signed so we can get that to the contractor.
Okay.
It has to be B&B, and it has the total amount of the bid in there. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get contract documents put together, and we'll get request their performance and payment bond, insurance certificate, and have a contract for them to sign, and then we'll be bringing it back to you. What we like to do is have a spec book with all the signed documents in it, so you can just grab that and if you have anything you need. We'll have one, you'll have one, and the contractor will have one.
Can you send me an updated, what you did the updated costs on?
Sure,
Because then I can do estimates for people.
excellent.
That'd be great, thank you.
It's just in pencil, but we'll make a copy
That's fine,
of
yeah.
what you're using in it.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
good point.
Did the bid have a timeline, or do they have?
Yeah, let's see, was it November 1st or something? But the contractor, this contractor does a lot of farm drainage too, and he said that as soon as he was far enough along in that, he'd come to this job. So anticipate it fairly early. And I look for them to go fairly quickly.
But it would be this fall.
Yeah, it'll be absolutely done this season.
So he called us maybe forever.
And we have the permit for that, and the contractor's responsible for purchasing insurance and paying the flagman. And, and they want the tracks monitored continuously while the boring is going on, and that's part of what we'll do. If it's over a quarter of an inch of movement, they make us stop and figure out what's going on. But we'll be out there while they're boring anyway, so we'll just use our survey equipment.
You line like a laser up on the tracks or something?
Yeah, we actually will use, we'll get something set up with a benchmark, and then we'll check from that to the tracks in the same locations each time to see what difference there is. It's just that it's a quarter inch from what it is now, so we don't have to have necessarily sea level elevation or whatever you want to call it.
Do you
Yeah.
anticipate a lot of crop damage?
Up to 100 feet wide, probably on that lower part. Well, that's, most of this is the lower part, yeah. I've estimated that, I think, 2,500 permanent and 6,000. I've got that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have it estimated.
Okay.
Rick, you got an idea of how long it would take once they get here?
For the whole thing?
Yeah.
Less than a month, I guess. Yeah.
I assume they have their boring contractor lined up.
Yes. Yeah, he called him right away yesterday after we talked about that. And, there's a couple of issues. One is, are the utilities in the bottom of the road ditch that could conflict with where they're working. And as soon as they were noticed of the award, they're gonna call one call and get that done. So,
Did you talk about how long the boring would be shortened to at all?
Yes, the boring contractor said it'd be difficult to shorten it much more than 20 feet, simply because then if they're getting into the slope, it takes that much more shoring to shore that end of the boring pit. That, they said they'd consider more depending on what the situation looked like in the field for utilities. Yeah.
Okay.
So. Thank you. The contractor will be very glad to hear this. We like his work and Holland's work very much. I think everybody would be pleased. And don't be afraid to approach the contractor when he's out there. He's very knowledgeable, and understands the importance of PR with the landowners. See something you don't like, tell him or us or both. But yeah, we're very happy with this guy. Don't be surprised if there's a holiday during the period. Don't be surprised if you see him out there. He's a workaholic, but he's going 110%.
I guess that's, any other comments on this?
Can we briefly go back to drainage?
Auditor's office will discuss drainage matters.
Yeah. The one letter you sent out, about the mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was indicated in there and we had problems with this engineer in the past.
Oh, that was from even before I started.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that,
'Cause I have no.
it was just a
I have no
comment that
problem
was
with
made.
that letter.
So it was just a comment that was made.
Okay, move on to number 8, then Scott Minder's engineer will discuss secondary road matters. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good day.
don't have much specific, but I will touch on, on Sunday and even later yesterday, people started to see the surface of the road start to thaw out.
Saturday. Right, Bill?
Saturday, yeah. And I'm sure we'll be taking some calls from the public who are frustrated by that, and we'll be frustrated by that as well here. Yeah. Anytime in the spring when we have frozen road beds and thawing surfaces, we're going to have a situation that's impossible to resolve.
There's nothing.
So, all we can say is we need to be patient while the roads heal and try to reserve calls for urgent matters. And we'll try to do our best to be working on the roads when they get fit. It may be some time before we see that. Just happened to be that this weekend and yesterday were a good kind of reminder that spring will be coming and it will get worse before it gets better.
Every year. Almost.
Every year, some worse than
Some
others.
years are- Hopefully not another year like last.
Certainly wouldn't expect it to be as bad as last.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you have it.
Just went on the road after the wedding. Got trashed.
Yeah, it was the tip. I'm one of the culprits, I was hauling for yesterday. I made some tracks. I had to drive through them myself sometimes. So then you're going from one side of the road to the other trying to hit the dry spots.
Really the biggest thing you can do is to wait for it to freeze at night and try to do everything in the morning before it
I
thaws.
could talk the place we're hauling it to and just staying open at night, I would gladly haul it. But I don't think I'm gonna get that done.
One thing I'll mention is probably more to do with drainage, but I talked to Rick a little bit about plan submittals and wanted to try to copy our office when we get to certain stages of the game so we can just make sure we have a review step for road crossings and things like that. In this case, or in some prior cases, we have removed the road crossings from the contract and done those ourselves. So, that's an option we'd like to consider when we get to kind of final plan stage or when you're putting contracts together. So, I guess just looking to be more copied on when we get to those submittals so that we can talk about that at that time.
Move on to number 10, discussion with possible action, front door of courthouse.
So, as we've been working out front, we've come to the realization that the front door was never put in properly. And it has, the concrete is not at the right level, and the door should be pushed in further than what it is. And to be honest, it really needs, right now it has a lock that you turn from the inside. Well, sometimes when you lock the door, people, after 4:30, people are supposed to walk people to the door and let them out. Well, sometimes they don't do that. So then the door's already been locked, people walk to the door, unlock it, and let themselves out. Well, then they don't lock it again. And if you've already locked it and you think it's locked, so we'd like to look at a door that has one of the bars that you can push to get out, so that it's already locked. Maybe connecting it to the to our system where we can settle the locks at a certain time, something like that, so that we don't have air and water and all that stuff coming in through the door too.
It's an
So
old door.
it is,
It's seen better days, and it is single pane glass. Needs to be replaced.
so we don't have quotes yet on it, but basically today I'm looking for approval to go ahead and look for doors for the front. So that, and
Now's the time to do it.
And we'll probably be looking for doors over here too. And Kevin and I have talked maybe even bringing the brick in a little bit further so that we don't have so much glass, and also having the the push button to get out there too.
So you go from a double to a single, or?
Probably, if you stand out there on a cold day, it's as cold inside the building as it is outside the building, and that's not helping our utility bills. So, I think we just,
Things out there too.
yeah, so I think we just need to get them both replaced, and while Dave's here, and like I said, if we can bring that in just a little bit to block in where some of that window is, that'll help with the temperatures and then heat regulation in that front too.
I'm assuming when they had double doors was so that it would be easier if we couldn't get them out of the building, so the doors would have to be, I get acquired on the 36 on that. That's what you'll show up.
And it's easy to put a 42 inch.
Well, and we'll look at a variety of options, and
Well, even a newer double doors is better than a jack.
So it'd be similar to what's down by the elevator, those doors.
maybe just whiter though.
Yeah.
Is that a panic down by the?
Yep.
But this action is just for the one door.
Just for the one door
Just for
right now.
one door to go ahead and research prices.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the possibility of a new front door on each side of the courthouse.
Second that, the motion Derby and second from Stenzer to go ahead with researching a new door for the east side of the courthouse. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Consider for approval amendment to Tyler Technologies agreement.
So I've read through this, but the county attorney thinks she needs to read through it yet, so, and she hasn't had time. So, if
Table
you
it.
want to table it, that'd be great.
When you guys have your part seven, we'll go to CSS meeting tomorrow in Mason City.
I can't.
Do you guys want to talk about getting over and the bid, which
Yeah, we used to have Sandy go.
we can? Under my dream.
Sandy said she'd go.
Okay, we have to wait for time.
She'd be better, but
No, because that's the main tile. You're talking about the lower end.
Yep.
So,
or the middle.
right, so we can go back to drainage if you want to
It's
talk
at
about that
Mason
before
City
10:30.
at
It's up to you guys.
Because you won't listen to us at 10:30.
State Patrol Office, I guess, must be the
Right.
one out there.
You know I
Because I
will.
don't think the old one.
You won't hear me though. You might listen,
Yeah,
but you won't hear me. I know how you listen.
That's been torn down.
But actually, no, it's still there. It's that, actually, it hasn't come in social services.
I ain't that big of a preacher, I don't need to have.
But I don't think they have a little bigger.
I usually pretty good.
Well, yeah, they may have moved it all to the.
Was, and that's that one up in
We
there.
did.
Because they're,
Who knew?
all the meetings are now gonna be in Mason City at the new location, but they don't have the furniture there yet, so they couldn't have this in there, so they got it at the. They're gonna be traveling around, no more going to Key County, Washington, Mason City. What's that?
Where's the D location? Is that
Oh.
public health or?
The DHS moved there after that roof collapsed on the
Yeah.
old school there. And, you go
The
to,
old Kaplan, the old Purdue,
it's, well,
Walmart.
I think it's where Curry's used to have their offices.
All different.
You go, like go into town, and then take 65 south, and then take a left right before you go to that railroad track, overpass or whatever. Like it's 8th Street, you take a left on, and go east, back in there, and then you gotta take another right and end up on, street, maybe it's 8th, maybe it's, but it's way back in there along the railroad tracks. There's a big building back.
So the rest of the region, way out east, is okay.
Yeah, doing that, they went past on a boat, 13 or 12 to 8 or 9. That's all built to the top, the majority of them, but going to the same place all the time.
Why you did
I actually don't get it, so I lost again.
just to be different.
There's something we said again, so you should see things, but I won't miss the trip down. But it was their new, like, the whole building out here. The education, the conservation education center. They've got nature center. They've got a brand new one right on the Mississippi River. And you get to sit there at the meeting and watch the river roll by. On this side.
I didn't make it for the Worth County tour the other day.
What do they do?
They were impressed with our facility. They wish they had this much room. They wish they had this ornate
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah. There's just a little less.
They kind of determined that they probably did over their options.
Oh, there,
But they didn't start with what we did.
yeah. Well, and I was just about much more character, all
Yeah.
power.
That's what they said.
It's just,
That's their choice.
I mean, theirs is still kind of a neat looking building. But
Yeah, they wish they had this room for the supervisors.
yeah, they have a little cave down there before. Yeah. Oh, well. Anybody wanna lead us in a chorus of the wheels on the bus go round and round or something? Or
How about back to drainage?
Can we go back to drainage?
Oh, you wanna talk about drainage some more? Sure.
So if you're on the lower end of DD 11 and you're annexed into this system, you know, we're gonna get the fallout of what's proposed at the top. That system is a big improvement. Everybody below your drainage system will be compromised or reduced to accept this water. And I think you guys have the ability to limit that project, being your trustees.
We have it on the agenda to talk at this at 10:30, so.
No, this is on DD 11,
Lower end.
Just the lower end.
just the lower end, not the main tile part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Sorry.
You know, and you guys put a great stock in the engineering of these projects. Well, when this ditch was designed and engineered, you put a 24-inch tile at the top. Now it was 60-some inch, and it went to an open ditch. So I would guess the flow of water is going to be considerable. And every landowner on the bottom side is going to be affected.
The maximum size on the tile is for a 1-inch coefficient, so to drain off 1 inch of rain in 24 hours. So from the tile system, it's quite limited, actually. And the only reason we're going with the ditch is you can't get a tile in and have any cover on it. The ditch is just naturally, it has more capacity than a pipe. it's got all that open area.
But speaking to his concern,
Yep.
what will it do downstream?
Well,
Get
there'll certainly
everybody's
be,
water faster.
there'll certainly be some increase because the old system isn't even a quarter inch probably an eighth or a 16th. So if we just replaced what's there, you'd see a significant increase. But again, that's probably less than a quarter inch coefficient system now. So you're not getting that much. I put a lot of weight on 1 inch coefficient is the most you'll be putting in there. Even if you connect a lot of pattern tiles to it or intakes, it'll still only carry 1 inch. So the effect should not be drastic. It'll seem drastic because it's terribly low flow now. And our hope is that what we've even done will help getting all the trees out of there, even the ones in the creek. The reason you went forward with the tree removal is so we can get more information on that area and actually make a submittal. And we'll do that as soon as spring weather allows here. And then we can get more direction on what we can do down there.
But you just said putting it back to the original 24-inch would make a significant more amount of water, and you're talking triple the size of that 24-inch.
But we're still, because we go in so little slope, it still only calculates 1 inch drainage coefficient, 1 inch per day of runoff. So you can try and cram all the laterals you want in there, but the main will still only carry 1 inch a day until you get a lot of water buildup upstream. So yeah, that's why it's.
But it will slow down everybody's tile down below because the creek's gonna be fuller more than it has been, right?
More than it has been, simply because the capacity of the existing system is so low.
Because south of my place, I usually get a pretty good area of water when the creek is high, and usually goes down within 24 to 36 hours. Well, that's not gonna happen anymore. It's gonna stay up maybe 48 to 60 hours.
Well, we know there's going to be some increase there.
A lot of increase.
The idea is to handle it the best we can and get what we can for permits for improving it. You still have a problem with the outlet. The river is probably a limiting factor on some of that ground. I don't know if it comes far enough to affect you or not.
I'm right at the top end of the ditch, right where the new ditch starts.
Oh, okay.
And it's gonna affect me quite a bit. I figure you're gonna move that Sunday water a mile and a half down on me. You're just gonna make that land, my land, look like that Sunday farm.
Well, 1 inch coefficient shouldn't do that though. I mean,
when the creek's up, it floods out on mine. Plus, the other tile, like, I think it's a county tile, that runs up to Highway 9 is gonna be that much slower. So it's just gonna affect me that much more.
So you're at the point where the furthest upstream end of the ditch is now.
Yep.
And you're flooding now with that tile restricted as it is.
That was before the tree removal.
Yeah, that should help some, absolutely. Not the final answer, but it should definitely help.
That, the straining of it down there.
If whatever we can get done, yeah, the straighteng's gonna be limited. The Corps has their rules and there's different rules whether you leave the oxbows where it curves so much. If you can leave those in but straighten the rest, you don't have to do as much. With the idea, you wouldn't recover much for land not doing the oxbows, but it's a lot easier to get the permit if you leave them. But straighten to help the capacity, yeah. I want to get eyes on it this spring. We'll physically see it, we'll drone it, and I would say we should drone from down at the road where it outlets all the way up through the whole ditch. And maybe even run the tile, in a couple hours time we can get all that flown again and pick out the flooding spots.
But you're designing a project at the top.
Yeah.
And you're not concerned about getting the top water to there. I mean, you're gonna let the water flow wherever it goes, so if it goes over the banks on my property, that's just tough crap for me. Your interest is in the top end project. You're not really concerned about the lower.
Well, yeah, we're absolutely concerned, but with just a 1-inch coefficient, there should not be much difference than if the old tile was in good shape.
Does that
I mean,
remain?
So then why would you triple the size of it then if the old tile was significant or adequate? Why would you?
It wasn't adequate. I'm just saying it was,
But was it adequate for the design of the ditch and engineered ditch that was there? Is your 60-some inch tile,
I guess the
is that
question,
engineered for that size of ditch?
is it gonna be a 1-inch coefficient all the way to the Winnebago?
the ditch typically has 2-inch coefficient. We're dumping an inch worth in it. I can run the calculation, but it's a matter of the elevation of the river, or of the ditch water will be a few inches different. I mean, it's,
But I got skin in the game here.
oh yeah,
And you don't, other than being paid on the project. And your project is the top. It doesn't reflect anything on the in-between. If we flood out, that's tough. And I think the way I read it is we have to accept the surface water, but as soon as you start putting tile drains or changing the flow of the water, speeding it up, that creates a problem.
we still only get 1-inch drainage coefficient from that system,
And
if they choose the bigger system even.
if you improve the drainage up at the top, then the ground will also be able to absorb a little more moisture because you're getting rid of the.
Absolutely. Once it's
You still- I
in,
mean, there'll be, not that it'd correct the whole problem, but it won't be quite as bad because the ground will have a better chance to dry out before the.
absolutely, it's amazing what a difference that can make. Basically holding capacity of the upper part because you've drained it gradually at the 1-inch drainage coefficient.
Rick, maybe I'll ask a question. Have you estimated what the flow rate of the creek at certain points down the rest of the way, could be, without overtopping the bank? I mean, I think what you would find is that the creek could handle a substantial amount of quantity compared to the tile,
There you go.
just purely because, based on area. I was just doing some notes myself, the box just below you there, that I think it's 14 by 10.
But it overflows and comes back on, it backflows onto my property now. It comes out into the ditch, back into the field now,
Sure, yeah, and
without any improvement.
yeah.
How you're gonna increase it?
So I think the question is, you already have a problem. Is this going to make the problem worse, or will it be unnoticeable? And I would venture a guess that it would be unnoticeable. This is what Rick is saying, and I don't have a way to objectively prove that, and that's maybe the problem.
Are we gonna write a contract? You wanna buy the property on each side, back to the water back up when it happens? Then you got skin in the game.
Well, we've done calculations on multiple projects where we have similar situations. And the effect on the ditch levels, usually not more than 2 inches or 3 at the most. Just because by the time you have that ditch flow, it's so wide that the actual height it changes is very, very minor. And the ditch, nearly always the ditch can carry at least twice as much as the pipe you put into it.
So the overflowing of the bank now doesn't matter, because
What matters, and hopefully, if it happens now, hopefully we can still get something accomplished downstream to help that situation. We haven't given up on
shouldn't you
that.
fix that side first, though? I mean, you're kind of putting the horse
Well,
horse behind the cart.
It's a
or-
natural situation. I mean, you get into the drainage rights and everything else, they have the right to improve it. And the idea of the tile being maybe half the capacity of the ditch, that's where the tile doesn't have a big effect on the ditch. It all counts, and we're gonna see if we can't do something at least on the bottom. Even if we can just do some cleaning in the bottom of the existing ditch, I think the difference that will even be drastic.
Can't you do that no matter what?
You have to go through permitting, but we should be able to get that permission.
So you go through permitting when you clean the ditch in my property? Or is it just a
Not with the
book
tree
item?
removal.
No, we're just talking cleaning the ditch.
Are repairs subject to approval?
We like to notify the agencies, but No, they should not have a say.
Well, then we could do it.
Yeah, well, the straightening, that, they have control
Oh,
of the
yeah,
straightening,
That's
but,
improvement.
yeah. I don't look for any hassle in doing some clean out of the ditch itself, even on the lower part.
So what guarantees are there that this don't work and it backflows on all our property on the lower end and our tiles are restricted or reduced?
Facts and figures on capacities now compared to how it will be with the improvement. Yeah.
Real life, it's gonna happen. It's gonna,
There will be increased flow simply because the old system is in such terrible shape that it's restricted flow from it. And we're putting in a new system, either half-inch or 1-inch drainage coefficient. So yes, there will be more flow, but we still feel you can put all the 1-inch drainage coefficient tile you want into the ditch, and the effect should be relatively small because the ditch has twice the capacity of that many, no matter how many 1-inch coefficient systems you put in there for tile. For example, laterals further down the stream. You're still putting, and if those are existing, they're probably no more than a 1/4-inch coefficient. So the tile just do not add that much depth to the ditch.
so I think at one time you said this was working at 1/16 of an inch.
That's probably about right for some of it. Even in some places are almost blocked, we feel, in the low areas, where the tiles has blowouts.
Not good.
Yeah, I guess I haven't followed that either. I don't know how, you said no matter how many 1-inch coefficients was dumped.
Yeah, if you go downstream, you're still bringing in 1 inch off of the acres that drain in at that point. So,
You filled the ditch half full from one outlet. So everybody below that,
no,
if the ditch is a 2-inch coefficient and you're gonna add 1 inch at the top, the ditch is half full at the top coming down.
you have to deal with this.
That's farmer math.
You
Maybe in your
deal with the slope. The bottom foot of the ditch will carry about half as much as one more foot of ditch, and then half as much again.
Where's all my drainage in my property? It's at the water line or in the ditch now. So now when you put the water above it, now it's gotta force its way out into the ditch.
The actual difference in level of water is very, very small, simply because the ditch already has a certain amount of flow, and if you add an inch over 20 feet wide, you're adding a lot of space there and using up the water. So you're not getting much increase in depth or an increase in tile flow. The board hasn't given up on this at all, and that's why they approved clearing those trees, so we can get more information to make a significant.
But I guess I just feel it's kinda weird that you increase the flow first and worry about downstream second.
Well, if we were doing a 5-inch drainage coefficient system, I'd worry about it. But a 1-inch drainage coefficient on a tile will have minimal effect on the ditch. And we're simply following the drainage code where the people on the tile have the right to petition for an increased tile capacity.
But
Do
all
they
our
have-
trustees also have some say in it? Our 3
Well-
supervisors? On if they think a 1 inch is too much and it's gonna slow down.
Compromise.
Yeah, compromise the other people down below. They gotta look out for everybody in that drainage district, not just the top end.
And you're trying to look out for everybody by doing the tree clearing and seeing what else they can do downstream, while not restricting the rights of the people on the tile.
Maybe to put it in layman's terms, Gary,
Don't they have the right?
Yeah,
could you,
a year ago about, right now, or was it 2 years ago?
2 years.
I worked for Jeff on his property and kind of widened the ditch, cleaned it up a little bit. I don't know if that's a natural fit, I don't think so, but it was in the spring and it thawed. But now you got runoff water rather than tile water. That creek, I think let's say I went and had a cup of coffee and I come back and that creek had raised 2 feet I mean, just like that. But it was a mild day and runoff water is maybe different than tile water.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But you're always gonna have
And
some.
it came so quick. And versus that compared to a 8-inch rain in a 10-hour period, you know what's gonna happen, it's gonna be all run out of water.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have the runoff water you have to deal with in spring is absolutely worse. We've all seen ditches that have been blocked nearly.
But I do see their side of the
Oh, yeah.
story, that
That's why the board hasn't given up on
you
doing more down
talk
there.
something this bigger, big, you gotta expect more water.
Yes.
But I'm gonna be your time, I suppose.
I've gotta make a vote whenever we do, it's gonna affect people big time, so I need to wrap my mind around.
Oh, sure.
If you have a tile coming in, this new tile, and you said if you put another tile in, it's 1-inch cold.
Further downstream.
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
1/4 inch, you said they were probably 1/4 inch and up to 1 inch. Doesn't that make sense if there's double the water coming through both those pipes then, possibly?
Each watershed is treated by itself, and the ditch ends up taking the whole watershed.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how you get it there. So that here's the watershed and it's 1/2-inch coefficient, here's one that's 1/2 inch in that area, 1/2 inch. That means you're getting a 1/2 inch to the ditch over a larger area. So it's still that 1/2 inch per day on those old
So
tiles.
that one tile though.
Right.
Did you add the other tiles into it?
Well, just trying to think the best way to explain this. If you didn't have any other tile coming into the ditch, your 1-inch tile up there would only be for the acres it drains. The rest of it would be nothing, basically, without those other tile laterals coming in. The idea is to drain each internal watershed with a 1-inch drainage coefficient or less, so that all the creek is getting is a 1-inch over the entire watershed.
I understand that.
Yeah,
But in this particular situation, it is gonna increase the volume of water, correct? If you put 3 1-inch coefficients in, you put the improvement in, and then you put 2 more improvements in your 1-inch, that will increase the volume, won't it?
if you ran another 1-inch paralleling the 1-inch we're talking about, yes, but the other 1-inch coefficients I'm talking about, or 1/2 inch, are other parts of the watershed. If we doubled up the one up to that we're talking about, then you have essentially 2 inches of coefficient coming in if they follow the same route and are big enough.
Well, I gotta get this straight, so
And
if we're gonna get the improvement to 1-inch, okay, now we got a 1-inch coefficient coming into it. New. If the other watershed says we want a 1-inch coefficient, we're gonna improve that. Doesn't it stand to reason that you're going from a 1/4 inch to a 1-inch? The volume of water will be more coming out of that tile?
If you replace a 1/4 inch with a 1-inch, you'll get more volume.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't look for any of these laterals, other county laterals, to be put in more than a 1-inch
I would
coefficient.
be willing to argue that one, because I'd say in the near future, there'll be one right off to the side of it. And I don't know the ditch number.
10, goes to 10.
To zings and up in there.
There'll be a project.
That'll be the same deal as what you're doing today. So there will be another big
Well,
one.
it's a private trustee district.
Oh, yeah.
Hesitant to do anything.
Yeah, true, okay,
One person.
okay.
He controls the acres before
He
controls the acres before it's
That's what flow rate.
Let's talk, excuse me, let's talk one at a time, please.
Scott had a good point. We're talking coefficients everywhere. That's a little confusing. We're still just carrying the water off a certain area,
Right.
and then another certain area, and another certain area. And no matter how many of those you add up within that watershed, you're still only getting a 1-inch coefficient out of all the
Out of the whole
tiles.
thing.
So your
Yeah.
2
But the
inch,
volume could be more.
Yes,
so your 2-inch coefficient up by Bill's place at the top of the existing ditch.
right.
And your 2-inch coefficient probably down by his, just
Yeah.
down lower.
Yeah,
But the ditch is a different size down there because you're covering more land. It's a bigger ditch at that point.
yes, true. So and the idea is that even the ditch, no matter where you're at, is to try and have a 2-inch coefficient. To help control the rise in the ditch.
do it here.
spring isn't the time to look at it. I mean, with all the snow melt and early rains and all of that,
Is that, when you go from a 1 inch to a 2 inch in the ditch, is that kind of like tile, if you went like from a 4 to an 8 doesn't double it, how much more does it, I mean,
oh, yeah,
It would take
Is that-
like 3/6 to equal.
right,
yeah, there you go.
Sit close.
Close,
right,
yes.
so is that the same logic for a ditch?
Well, it doesn't take much, you add a foot width to a ditch and it really improves the capacity. It is that way where you don't have to jump very much to really make a huge difference.
So just think of all the drainage ditches that we're cleaning and they're dumping into the river. I think you should be down to the Forest City and start cleaning Winnebago River.
That'd be wonderful.
And I've had, people tell me it isn't out of the question. It's just somebody has to really push it. The odds of it happening, maybe not very good, but it could be done.
We recently got a verbal approval from the Corps to remove trees,
Oh,
but it's the west fork of the Des Moines, and it's in a drainage district. So they say as long as it's in a drainage district, we can at least clean the trees out of the river. Yeah, which would help a lot. I mean, but I'm not sure how wooded, area I'm familiar with it isn't too bad for trees. But,
well, it's the cleaning that
yeah,
'cause
yeah.
But the
I'm not
Winnebago,
that old, but when I was a little kid, that ditch seemed to be a lot deeper than this one.
shorter,
Yeah, a lot shorter.
but the Winnebago is federal water, ain't it? Isn't it?
That's Corps of Engineers, right?
Yeah, and the Corps still has responsibility on the one I'm talking about.
Jurisdiction.
That's what I'm after. Yeah, you can see it wasn't coming to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still have jurisdiction. The board has not given up doing something more downstream to make it better than it is now, even before we do this project.
I'm just worried about, even if it is cleaned downstream, it's still gonna affect me with this 1 inch coefficient or a 1/2 inch coefficient. It's still gonna put more water in that open ditch, I do believe.
There will be more water.
So it will be higher and go out into my field, slow all the other tiles downstream, slow them down.
The money we've invested in our tiles and our stuff is going to be compromised. It's going to work at a reduced rate. I guess I'm not as old as you, but what I've been around, there's a direct. Why do people put more tile in? They want to drain it,
Absolutely. Well, and the whole idea with all of this is to drain it better, faster.
But do you move one problem from one spot downstream to somebody else?
Part of the issue we're dealing with is there's problems now, and even if we just repaired the tile, it'd be different than it is now. The actual difference between what there is now and what there would be with our improvement, I'd go out on a limb and say it wouldn't be much more than 2 inches of creek rise.
Well, you're talking right now, you said it was a 1/16 of an inch
Yes.
flow right now, over 16,000 acres. That's what the new project acres are, basically, up there. Or 1,600.
Yeah, there you go, okay.
1,600 acres.
Yeah.
So how many gallons of water is that in a 24-hour period versus 1 inch over those acres? Quite a bit.
16-fold difference, isn't it? If you go from
Yeah, as far as what the tile is contributing, yes.
And then you're gonna bump it up to that inch.
The important piece of that was what's the flow rate of the ditch and how do those two relate to each other? I think it's probably how
And
we'll.
nobody's looked at that.
Yeah,
Nearly every ditch situation we've looked at in the past, the ditch was essentially a huge gap.
we could look at how we size the flash culvert downstream, see what flow rate those are figured at. That's never where we put our fingers on pretty easily. So kind of ballpark comparison, but
So if you look to see if there's any other culverts in there crossing the ditch from one farmer's field to the other field? See if they're big enough?
Well, we weren't authorized to study the existing ditch, slope and, pipe in it.
So we don't know what this top end's gonna do to it then.
Raise it a couple inches. And
For
I'm
an
not trying
extended,
to-
for an extended period of time as
Yes,
well,
yes.
so.
Well, in the spring at least, yeah, after rain with the additional capacity.
Summer, we get
Oh, yeah.
an inch
yes.
of rain, 3 days later, an inch of rain or 2 inches, and then you got surface water coming all of this then.
True. The idea was to get the capacity of the tile that would be justifiable upstream while having a minimal effect downstream and still seeing what we can do downstream. I don't see us improving the entire length of that open ditch.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's work we do and glad to do, but nothing we push. I mean, that's, if you think
We
this,
just can't keep spending money.
oh, I know, that's why we don't go out on a limb and do extra work typically on projects. Because it affects the dollars we charge, absolutely.
So down below now, they cut those trees off, do they dig them up in the bank or?
No, well, they've done some of that, they've yanked some of it out. We tried to look at it with them on what should stay them out.
Because all they did was cut them off at ground level, well, they're just gonna start growing again.
That should become, you have a spraying program, I think, don't you, as far as on ditches? That section should definitely be hit, and monitored.
You know what the next flow rate for that 1 inch coefficient would be? That
You might be able to come up with it,
be interesting.
yeah.
I have one other question. You annexed me into the system, and I would guess, Oni and Jim Ambrose, and they were annexed in as well, correct? So, in your previous meetings about this digging the ditch at the top end, you guys were gonna pay for that property to dig the open ditch on?
Say that again.
The upper end of 11's project, you're gonna dig an open ditch, or that's one of the possibilities. You're gonna buy the land to dig that open ditch.
It's an easement.
You're gonna pay for that?
Yeah.
Or the district does?
The upper
The
end.
district
Upper
does.
end does. So what about the bottom end people that you annexed in? Do they get paid for their property?
In the whole,
In the lower end annexation, it's a
Oh.
natural waterway now.
Right.
How is that handled?
No, I don't believe the right-of-way was actually acquired. If we go in there to work, we'll have to do something with that. We're going to actually do some digging.
So I control the river flow then? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, okay, you can't really block what's there. You basically take the water from up above just because that's natural flowing. When you-
Surface water. I don't
Yeah.
have to take drained water.
You would not be, you'd be paid very little for what's in the ditch now. If we're
Penny a
able,
gallon?
yeah, for a week, that'd be just enough, right? But the area that is existing creek now, you get very little payment for it. What do you do with it? You can't farm it. If we have to widen and straighten, there'll probably be some right-of-way acquisition there. But again,
But I never got any help when I cleaned my ditch. I took the trees out, or I hired Gary to clean it, fix it up, dip it out. That was a donation on my part.
I don't know how you want to look at it, but it was to benefit the area. It was along, your area along the ditch was where it was done? Or-
I did myself.
The district thanks you.
That's, yeah, I was hoping somebody'd say that.
We gotta move on. It's
To
10:30.
accept more.
We'll move into the informational meeting for DD 11. All those DD 11 out there?
You wanna move the table forward?
Yes, by all means.
Rolling back, I think, over time. Oh, it must be locked.
Is everybody up to snuff what we're discussing? We'll open it up for information. If anybody has a question, refer them to Rick on this part right here.
We've extended the ditch, this is an odd situation where we went with a 1/2 inch. We had to go with some arch pipe to make it work because we had so little depth to work with. So we've extended the ditch further, and we've had this discussion before, so that we could get round pipe and not pay all the extra money for the arch pipe. So, cheapest option was to go with the 1-inch tile option, taking the ditch further. And that's what has been presented before. The design is not finalized. We've got route on a drawing. We've put cost figures together, and I'm having trouble coming up with those right now. The idea was to decide what option to go with. It didn't meet remonstrance, so it's trying to do the best you can as far as what project you end up building. The other consideration with this one is the wetlands, the determinations that were done. Emerson Lead is here, happens to be the most drastically affected land. His cost for wetland mitigation, just paying half the cost, was essentially $160,000. He's been in contact with NRCS and FSA and attorneys and engineers. We have to, trying to come up with a way to make this work and not have the wetland mitigation be such a big factor. Part of what Emerson was telling me yesterday is in NRCS or FSA, they were saying they really couldn't do anything until the project went forward. Am I saying that right? As far as any official ruling, that seems to be backwards to me.
Are you talking wetland determination?
Well, the determinations are done. It's what he can do with his wetlands.
Okay.
For example, there's NRCS is saying you can idle the land, in other words, not plant it, and some of that he doesn't want to plant. It's in CRP. So, but if he could get some kind of agreement with them to not do anything more with cropland, that's still a possibility, but can't get an answer from them yet.
They use the term until the project is imminent, and I asked for a description of what is imminent in there, and they said once the bids have been let and the project is going forward. Well, I said that's past the point of being able to do anything with the district if they change their mind on what they told us. But we went to the state level. Rick talked to the Mr. Mantry.
Yeah, him.
And he would be the state compliance man, and he said that would be the determination that this is a possibility to idle it, but they can't give us any official documentation until we have the project is imminent moving forward, which leaves that.
Big swing.
Yeah.
Could be.
Is there, do you feel like there's any possibility we have that letter from another engineering company? I think you were involved in that. Is there you make it sound like they could probably make this mitigation numbers down quite a bit.
As far as the wetland acres.
The counties I'm familiar with stress that the NRCS and FSA look at all the tile maps and county system when they do the determination, so they've already taken that into account. Now, they've been fortunate in some other counties to get some change, but there can be significant cost involved in that. Just if you try and do some kind of soil study or whatever, engineering costs add up in a hurry. And those offices feel they've done their homework already. Isn't that what they were telling you? They could take those into account when they make the determination. Now, the county tile does go very near one of your wetland areas. And those offices go so far to say that they look at it as if the old county tile was new and how that affects it. Now, how far do you take it to fight that? I don't know.
I'd like to hear from you guys.
So when we started this project, there was 4 options on the table. Why did all 4 of those go to the wayside?
Because after we did the field work, the depth available to put the tile in was so limited that we probably couldn't even do the first part of it with the arch pipe. Just no cover. And the round pipe didn't have a chance.
So that work was done for nothing then, really?
Well, we look at, if you're doing it on paper and writing a report, you do the same amount of field work.
You had to explore that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We just had to do justice to the job. And that's why we've ended up, we didn't know till we extended the ditch, and we determined that before extending the ditch, we had to put in arch pipe to have cover. And that's why the shorter ditch ended up more expensive than the longer ditch, because you had the arch pipe to deal with.
So when you make this new open ditch, say we go with the 1/2 inch coefficient, is that open ditch a 1/2 inch coefficient?
It's hard to make a ditch that small.
So then you're speeding up the water also, right?
Well,
Yes.
anything that would surface
Because you
flow
said-
into that section of the ditch.
And
Yeah,
because you said if you widen the bottom by 1 foot, it really makes a difference.
it does, on how deep it gets for the same flow. Makes a big difference. Yeah, we're not talking a big ditch. I don't remember what the bottom was.
So how deep is that through some of that spots? It's pretty sandy. How do you keep that all?
We have to slope it back, and if it's a drastic situation, we either rip wrap it, or there's some slope control that you can use to try and get vegetation established. Excuse me.
Some of that ditch, what, 5 foot deep?
Or, yeah, 5 or deeper. Yeah. Because of not following the low ground completely, because it moves around so much. Yeah, portions of it are deeper than that. Wouldn't surprise me to see portions of it 7 or 8 feet deep. At all. To me, this job is essentially imminent. I mean, we're to the point of the hearings and didn't need remonstrance, but it sounds like they want bid letting in the contract, or at least a bid letting. Yeah, I think it's backwards, but
I'm just disappointed in NRCS and their backwards way of wanting it done.
yeah,
It's frustrating.
yeah, very
And I
frustrating.
really anticipated a better determination on the wetlands. I thought things had eased up some.
That's the impression they were giving, but at the end result, I don't think so.
The other comment that engineer and attorneys have talked to was as far as the appealing the current determination is not a short-lived process. So that's another side of trying to appeal it, which I guess our thought was not to try to appeal it because of the possible, it looks like about a 50-50 outcome, plus a time up to 3 years till the determination is finally made. And the local office assured us that they did check all old tile and all the, so that makes the appeal less possible.
Are the NRCS able to work with us on, you know, proximity to and effect on wetlands by not, by having a certain amount of non-perforated tile through some of those areas?
That's still something we'd work with on the final design. Try and do that. I mean, if we can reroute slightly to avoid an area. On one of his, the existing tile is kind of along the east edge of the wetland, and we would try and be on the opposite side of that tile so that the effect would be minimal. We can do that much appeal, not actually calling it appeal, just presenting the facts.
So right now, wetland determination is a worst case scenario,
Yes.
and we're trying to make it a much smaller number.
Yes.
I don't know how much I should say here, but Kevin Griggs, the manager of the Iowa Wetland Bank, I probably had 10 conversations with him. He looked at the aerial maps, one of their people drove by this project and our property, and he said they would not recommend mitigating that. He didn't really divulge all their purposes, but he said the cost is type of soil there could go high, quite a bit higher than the 16,000 they were projecting.
Because as I understand it, when you mitigate, you have to have light soil types, and do they have that availability? Or they have to pay more for that availability?
They have to pay more, it could go up to 21,000 an acre.
Don't get into a town or state ground with it. We had some years ago that went for like 24,000 an acre. The mitigation bank basically assures you that they can get it mitigated with lands they have already. And I think the total, I was thinking it was 15,000, but maybe it's 16 now.
That's what he said, was 16.
Okay.
To turn this down, you'd have to have real justifiable reasons, right?
Yeah, this, with drainage law, yeah, correct.
Even if we were to proceed, say, with a design, then we're still being held up by the wetland coordination with the design.
You can go forward with the design and you actually go forward with construction as long as you get the mitigation taken care of within 12 months of that. They give you a grace period. Now, worst case, if it gets drug out, they ask you not to plant the area that's wetland.
Does the EPA come into this at all as far as permitting on this project right here?
No, should not.
Because it goes through so many channels.
Right.
Downstream.
Yes.
If the original determination by the Obama administration would have remained in effect, then it would have been affected by permitting.
Yes, correct.
But that straightening at the bottom possibly could be affected by permitting.
Yes, could be.
Jeff?
I just have a question, is his cost estimate, is that at the $16,000 level to him, or is it at the $24,000?
It's, well, back then it was 15,000 an acre and it was half the cost to him.
But it could go to 24,000 to him before this is over.
Well,
Could possibly.
I wouldn't think so, but I mean, sky's the limit, I guess, on something like that.
Be a terrible bill to get.
Well, at 7,500 an acre, it's 160 grand.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it needs to be stressed to push to see what can be done.
The NRCS's suggestion of idling is a viable option. But Jim Hudson, drainage attorney, he said to present which I wish I could have got him to come here, but to present the idling would be for the lifetime. It could not be, without mitigation, it couldn't, you could have mitigated at any point down the road, but it would have to stay the way it is. And we checked into that lateral that comes up there, because their first thought was they would have to cap that lateral. Well, now you got a 100-acre problem if they're going to cap that lateral. But the last determination was that inlet, whatever is crushed there and holding the water up now, could be repaired, but it couldn't be used to drain more. But that to me is why it's so important to get from them that if I choose this way of idling that 21 acres, that we know it's not going to change because somebody retired by the time the project's done. Because then if we don't have it in the plan, the cost of the plan, the sharing part is even done. But Jim's suggestion was that the district consider, and I'm out of my league here, but the district consider reimbursing a number, and I think they allude to that in that letter that other engineer had. Because of the idling, the property is now not viable to sell to a farm. That all would take drawing up and presenting a resolution. To me, it opens another whole field. But like Rick said, we don't have, NRCS at this point is not going to give us anything anytime now.
Chris just sent us this week Pocahontas's
Yeah,
resolution.
and that came from Emerson.
Okay. And, I haven't had time to digest that.
I think no, that part we'd have to address ourselves, but
Right.
this is the resolution that they had. And they said there's one over at Worth County now too in place, so it's not out of the ordinary.
Is this something we can table? Because I would like to digest that.
I'm just wondering,
It's up to you.
yeah. I think we should probably table this determination until we can get a little more information on some of this.
There's been a lot of stuff that's been brought up that I need to educate myself on. So.
As much as I'd like to, be able to tell the NRCS that it is, imminent, I just want to make sure what the options are.
Go ahead.
Not that ordinance is a bad idea necessarily, but you could spend all that money and still not get it changed. So you have to really.
Well, that's what I want to look into.
You want to really weigh it all. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I appreciate what I just said. I appreciate the consideration because it does put roughly $3,000 an acre with the share of if we do half and half, with my share of the district plus the half, plus the assessment puts approximately $3,000 an acre to that property, and it idles 21 acres that can't have any return in doing that. So I appreciate the consideration for something. And I would be open to a idling if we could get commitment from the NRCS, and I don't know if the district could get.
So this idling would be in WRP then? Would you get payment from WRP on that then?
No.
You wouldn't? It'd just be basic.
I'm
idling,
still
you can't farm.
talking to the FSA, local FSA office. They haven't given a commitment whether it could be re-enrolled in a type of CRP where it is now.
Right.
Because idling raises a whole new option. They think it could be, but they don't know.
Well, I say we table this. You guys might come up with more questions. I definitely have to answer some of these questions in my mind, so.
The other district was a lot easier.
Well, this is,
Big problem.
I'm not in the district, you know, for that, so I wanna do it right, you know, and what the law is.
We weren't talking mitigation today. We were just supposed to be talking about if you wanted the 1/2 inch or the 1 inch coefficient. The mitigation was supposed to be taken care of later, so
But is there a
he could
point-
get going
Is there a
on,
point of no return? Once you make that determination.
but we can't have a remonstrance.
Right.
So there is, we're already past that point.
Well, then,
Here's an extreme case, if you want us to finish up the design so we have all the details on how it would affect things and what we can and can't do, you'd spend more on engineering, obviously. You could even go to bid lettings and at that point decide it's not practical to go forward, but you will have spent significant engineering getting there.
But we have to go forward, right?
I think so yeah.
From a code standpoint,
There's no
we
turning
can't-
back at this
we
point.
can't stop it.
right.
So we were going forward with the 1/2 inch or the 1 inch so they could get going on that and then do keep talking on the mitigation.
Yeah, well, I guess if that's the case, I'd be willing to move forward with it. Okay, I'll make a motion to move forward with, design of 1 inch coefficient.
Oh,
Hey,
no, we haven't even talked about it yet. We started talking about mitigation, we've never even gotten to the size of pipe.
Oh, I know it's confusing.
Oh.
Can we do this?
So the
I-
information
I-
just says a basic informational. So I'm kind of confused what your agenda.
The number
is.
7, we were gonna talk about what they wanted. Do they want the 1/2 inch or the 1 inch? And number 7 was gonna be the decision of that.
It's the 1/2 inch, 1 inch, long ditch, short ditch.
Nope,
There's
long
no
ditch.
short ditch.
We just decided the
Yeah,
long ditch.
so it's the
Okay.
1/2 inch or the 1 inch coefficient with the long
With the
ditch.
long ditch. Okay.
Yes. And I have letters from landowners who aren't here of what their recommendation would be.
Okay.
And I don't know what anybody else here.
Well, let's hear from that side of it.
Hawkeye Land Company has the 1 parcel, and this is their general counsel. He says, I do not have an engineering background, but it is hard for me to understand how a property owner with a parcel assessed at around $5,100 finds itself potentially being assessed $7,000 or $8,000 for this project. This project will not make my client's property any more valuable or marketable. From a fairness perspective, the properties that will benefit from this project should pay for it. Properties like ours that receive no benefit should not be assessed. With that being said, my client would vote for option 1, the 1/2 inch coefficient, and option 3 in regards to the wetland mitigation process where the landowner pays the entire mitigation cost. So that's the 1/2 inch. Ron and Karen Larson,
We're running out of quorum.
I've had an appointment scheduled for 2 months, deals with health, so
Okay, so give me the gist of each one.
Okay.
The whole letter.
1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Emerson is here, and those are the 2 from you, so you can say what you would like.
From my perspective, I should have just stayed home and not been here again. From my perspective, 1/2 inch would well serve the district.
I'd say if you gotta go through if you can't fix you should be able to fix the old to the size that it was, but you aren't gonna do that. You're either gonna go the 1/2 inch or the 1 inch. I'm still gonna get plenty of water with the 1/2 inch. So I don't want any more. I don't want a 1 inch coefficient, and one other thing, there's gonna be a hog site built before this open ditch is dug. Who takes responsibility for if there is a spill?
Confinement. We met on site,
And why should that be? Because they did everything right to get the permits.
but if they have a spill,
either way,
But it never
if
would-
that ditch wasn't there and they had a spill, they would.
we have to clean it up.
Yeah, but what if it goes into the drainage ditch then? That's still.
We got from the proper authorities, we got the verbal that it's a strange situation.
Can I interrupt?
Yes,
I would like Bill here when we make this decision, so you can keep discussing. And I'll listen to it on YouTube, and so I'll get all the information from you guys.
So you're gonna set another date then, Dave?
You can get it all discussed today.
I mean,
Okay?
You're gonna vote
we have to
today then?
determine when we're gonna make this decision.
No, if you guys all decide on the one, it's a half inch, they can make the motion next week to do that. But you can discuss it all and get your decisions, just nothing formal.
So if everybody decided on the 1 inch and we want our trustees to make the decision? Say everybody goes with the 1 inch today and our trustees think that is too much water coming downstream. Do they get a
It's our
vote then?
decision.
It's their,
Yeah.
It ultimately comes back to us.
We just allow you to have your opinions heard.
do you have water that drains into the tile, the new tiles?
Motion on the floor, do I,
Okay.
do we,
I'm getting, no.
You're getting the water. Yeah.
I'm getting billed, but I don't think I should be because I got surface water that goes down to the old ditch. Which I'd like to get that changed too, but I think everybody in that drainage district should have a say in it. Even anybody down in the middle, downstream, because it is affecting everybody in that drainage district. It's just,
I understand what you're saying, that they have no legal standing as far as the drainage law goes. But yeah,
it
the
should
board
be
is,
changed a little bit.
Legislation, feel free.
Does the drainage law read the surface water or funneled water?
what do you mean, does it read? Anything in the watershed, people have the right to use the ditch or tile. In this one, it just, the people that drain into the tile are the only ones who would be paying for the project we're talking about. Yes, the water ends up down with you guys.
Or the, what is it, servient estate is the lower elevation?
Yeah, have to
And
take the
dominant
water.
is on top?
Yeah,
Have to take surface water.
yeah.
Doesn't have to take drained water. Once you change the flow, it changes how it reads, correct?
I don't know, it's refer to a drainage attorney, I guess, to be sure.
Yeah.
So,
Here in this district, what's your thoughts on it?
I guess, bring me up to speed. I haven't been to all the meetings. Bring me up to speed.
Cost?
Well, the advantage and disadvantage, obviously, the one that's bigger, the one that's smaller. I mean, that's, is the half inch sufficient, or is it like everything else? You build a grain bin that's too small, you build a machine shed that's too small. I mean, bring me up to speed.
most of the projects where we've bid both, they've gone to 1 inch because of the increased drainage capacity. And this, for example, 28% increase in cost to get 100% more drainage out of the system. It's still only carried an inch, if that's what you designed for. But in this situation, we've seen them, people go half inch, and it's so much better than it is now that it really helps. It's just for 28% more, you can do twice as good.
So right now, everybody's saying half inch, maybe.
Wow.
Jeff's not.
In this room.
In this room, so far.
No, I prefer the 1 inch. Right, and that's what I've been hearing outside of the room.
Because my guess is, I'm looking at the ground, because I farm right down there, right, is it's pretty wet stuff. I mean, I don't know what your take is, will half-inch drain, especially in that Sunday farm over there?
It will help
I just, I mean,
a
for the
lot.
common good, if we're gonna put a drainage in, then the point is to drain the water, so if the half-inch isn't gonna do it.
And that's why most of the projects that are bidding both end up with the 1 inch.
Yeah. I mean, from a number standpoint, 28% more for double the drainage is like easy.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
that with no
paying more,
skin in
right?
the game.
I'm paying a good chunk either way, right? So it's not like I'm doing the best interest. Got the biggest chunk that's gotta be paid, but it just, for the common good, I wanna make sure it drains if that's what we're trying to do.
Let me put it this way, I've never had anybody say, man, I wish we'd put a smaller system in, but I've heard a number of times.
Yeah, it's hard to have half the drainage from me from you can pay 20% more than
Yeah.
double the capacity. It's just,
That's
So
what
it's
we're
almost
running.
30% more, so
Yeah,
it's not 20.
28 point something.
And if the majority of the landowners, either here who have written, want one way, my recommendation would be to do it the majority of the landowners want.
Not the majority of the land, but the
They never spoke up
If,
at
I
this
was gonna
meeting.
say, if somebody didn't come and they didn't tell me to, so I could read it for them,
I would say the only one I haven't heard from is the Sunday farm.
which, we'd love for you to hear from them, they're the ones that are most impacted.
Yeah.
That's right. I just don't think that half inch is gonna drain that farm, it's only concern for them, and I'm, it's on that ground, so.
You're gonna have an open ditch within,
Yeah, for me, there's an open ditch going right through my field, because I think that's the cheaper option, and.
But you have an upper field around the corner there, or down south.
Yeah, we
that
do, that
affects-
was, yeah, it would be affected, but my bigger concern isn't necessarily with that. It's just, what's the better deal for the district? It costs us all more, including me, to do 1 inch, but it just seems like that would do a better job, so. I'm hearing that people, if I'm hearing you right, Rick, the 1 inch is, they've never decided that, well, I wish we would have put a half inch in.
Right.
It's hard to know,
Never-
never didn't have a half inch in.
Never seen that.
Nonetheless.
If we're gonna go through mitigation costs or increased design or something because of the mitigation.
It's the same whether it's a half inch or 1 inch. Because it's improved drainage.
And I wonder if the other is a truth today, is the route gonna be set in stone of where that ditch is going? I've talked about it 4 times now. It goes to the property corner rather than the Rasmussen Farm losing 5 to 10 acres.
Yes, we've already redrawn that.
It has been redrawn.
Yes,
now.
there's less than an acre, I think, that will be affected there. I'd have to look at find the drawing again, but we did redraw and refigured quantities. And we're gonna stop just short of the road at the upper end of the ditch, so that it can get around the end easily.
How many feet do you think?
I think we went at close to 100. I remember, again, part of final design.
You're talking on the west side of the
so
ditch,
Thompson's
west
getting,
end of the ditch.
so Thompson's get a crossing at the end of the ditch.
Yeah.
Do I get a culvert now to get from one side of the ditch to the other? It was, I was able to do it before.
If you figure, we figured crossing pipe as needed to tie pieces together again, No, and there's some controversy there where the district typically pays for it the first time because they're cutting your land. But then after that, it'd be yours to maintain. That's how they've been ruling now. Hopefully that's 30 or 40 years from now, but
So what's the land worth that we're getting taken away for the open ditch?
I'm gonna have to inquire locally with people to get a good idea.
Is it market value or?
Yeah. The land actually taken out of production is market value.
Is it market value plus lost revenue from those acres, or just market value?
Just market value typically.
And you don't have to pay taxes on that land. You still own it, but you don't have to pay taxes. All right. We'll have to determine when we're going to make this decision. What's your schedule look like to come back? Every time we bring you back, it's costing the
Yes,
project.
oh yeah.
but if you guys decide today what you want, he doesn't have to come
No.
back. Because all you
True.
have to do is make the motion,
Yeah, good point.
so.
Gotta push back.
Well, I'd still like to hear from the Sunday Farm. Larry, you never really gave your opinion one way or the other.
I don't know on either one of them, but if I have the option, only those 2 options, I'd vote half inch.
So that's what we should be voting on, right?
It's the half inch or the 1 inch.
And it sounds like the majority in this room is going with the half inch.
And who I have heard from. If you've heard from different people and
But they haven't
But if it
voted
isn't
that.
on record,
Right,
You can't have a verbal.
right.
It'd be good to hear from Sunday. I mean, there's the people in the room and then there's,
But they all had a
that's
letter.
all the acres.
Just
It
a-
really should be the acre piece that's just like anything
Can
else, right?
you say that again?
Number of shares in a company vote based on how much ownership it has, right? So it should be based on not just the owners, but also how much land is impacted by each owner, right?
Just like the remonstrance has a twofold.
It's not.
I feel like that's not right. In this instance, because of the cost. It is my opinion. I can have it, right? I
It'd
can
be
have
good,
it.
I wish the Sundays were here, because they're the ones that are
They're
probably the
what?
most impacted by the half inch or the 1 inch. I just don't, it just seems that 20-30% more, whatever that is, to get double drainage. Just seems like we better move.
Well, I think I'm gonna decide next week, I'll try to get information from the remaining landowners that haven't commented. And I'll make that determination next week.
And we'll, if you want to come, you have a short time again to comment, just short time.
Yeah, we've already had
Short
our
time for
information,
comments,
you've made
again, from you
your
guys.
views. No, we're just gonna get the last information.
Right.
Call me, feel free to call me if there's just something I can answer.
Yeah, I think you did.
That's good.
But just for this meeting from these guys, what's your recommendation?
We've already got.
I know,
his.
yeah.
Yeah, the 1 inch, just because you can get so much more drainage for not that much more money.
We got a spot here, in your determination, did you try to put yourself in the guys that are paying big bucks for this?
Yes, and here's why. Nearly every job we've done, it can take as long as 5 years, but it's always been positive comments when we've gone to the bigger pipe. We had an owner in Palo Alto County, his assessment was way over 200 grand, including wetland mitigation. And he ended up tickled with the results.
I just don't know how you could base your decision on, I mean, I know it's recommended, yes, it would be great, but if the people want a half inch, why you would go with the 1 inch? I just don't know how
By
you could.
deferring it, aren't you trying to sway the opinions for people that didn't take the time to come to the meeting, that didn't take the time? It's really not it's not a democratic process. The letters were written. It said right in the original letter, you can write a letter if you can't attend. I think it's really unfair.
Plus, we didn't get those letters. I've indicated we'd like to have those letters when they go out, so we know what's been sent out. We don't have privy to that.
But that was what was said in the original letter about a year ago.
That's where I feel it's such a disadvantage to this, because we don't get to see what they're seeing. So in the future, I really recommend you send the supervisors the same thing you're sending them.
So I mean, by tabling it and putting it off, well, that's basically taking away the votes that are here then.
No.
No, it's getting a vote from everybody. But they
had the right to come. They were
anyway,
notified to come. The fact that they didn't come.
There's only one reason I want to table this, so that we can have Bill here for the vote.
But if any other votes come in, that shouldn't be, because they weren't here
No,
today.
I don't plan on talking to anybody else.
No, but if
I
anybody
agree
writes a
with
letter, it shouldn't be brought in.
I
because-
agree with you.
Any votes that aren't here today then shouldn't be allowed to be brought in then in the future if you do table it.
Yeah, I would agree with that in a sense.
But Terry doesn't. Terry wants to talk to the
Well, I
Sundays.
don't, so
Well,
if you look at
that's
it,
what I'm talking about, the unfairness.
I
of
do
it.
question that part of it, because we
But
had
everybody should have at
so we had an
least-
information meeting 2 weeks ago, right? And a lot of people in this room weren't here then. We decided to have another information meeting. We shouldn't have invited back.
It's not another information.
Somebody could be sitting.
This one is.
This one is,
Right,
yes.
so there's no reason that you can't say, to have another week of input from everybody, just like we did 2 weeks ago.
No, that's not.
Well,
there's
we're
no
tabling the vote.
Right, I'm just
That's
saying,
all
2
we're
weeks ago, we
tabling.
decided we need more information. There's no reason that now, if you haven't heard from landowners, to say, hey, we need another week to hear from everybody. That's really the more democratic process, is to hear from everybody, because I would like to know. Especially on you guys, what does everybody think? So if they don't speak up in the next week, then that's, their own fault. But
they've had their chance to speak up, I'm with you on that, so all I'm doing is tabling the vote. I think it's very unfair to,
Yeah, I agree.
Bill can't vote.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's the way the code is. Well, we're doing it next week then, for making our
Yes,
determination.
table will vote next week. And you're very welcome, and we will have a very short time that you guys can put your names up if something comes up. But just the guys in this room.
So if somebody else does come next week and says, look, if there's two more people on the 2-inch or the 1-inch coefficient, their vote is gonna be accepted?
Well, here again, I'm just, my opinion, because it would come down, we'd have to vote on that. So this is just my opinion, I think it should,
Be today's,
yes, you guys took the time to come here, you voiced your opinions, and,
and how hard is it to write a letter and throw it in the mail?
yeah.
And there may be people that won't be able to be here next weekend like me because I have an obligation to the auditor's office to work for them.
But you've already commented, so it's on record.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back and listen to this again, so. Because, I'm trying to put myself in you guys' shoes and wow, let's put it this way, very interesting.
Well, this guy's hung out to dry on that deal. I think it's bad. I think that 20 acres will follow that farm for its life. It won't change.
Okay. With that, we've tabled the vote, so that's it.
Do we have any more on the agenda?